Angela rubbed her tired eyes as she closed her laptop in the dim glow of her apartment. The hospice floor had been relentless today, and the last thing she needed was more chaos. She had a small comfort ritual, a weekly grocery list typed neatly and sent to her usual delivery service. But tonight was different. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. Angela Miller leaned back in her small apartment chair, rubbing her temples. Another 12-hour shift at the hospice had drained her completely, and her aching feet throbbed as though the pavement itself had joined in the day's punishment. She looked around her tiny kitchen. A stack of unopened mail, an empty coffee mug still steaming faintly, and her laptop waiting patiently on the counter. The clock ticked 9:42 p.m. She was meticulous about her routines. Between managing patient care, hospital paperwork, and her personal responsibilities, the small comfort of weekly groceries delivered to her door was one thing she could control. She had typed out her order with exact precision. Fresh produce, eggs, milk, protein bars, and her one indulgence, double chocolate chip cookies. Every Sunday, she copied it to her delivery service's email and hit send. Then she could forget about it, at least until Monday morning when the bags appeared outside her apartment door. Tonight, she had made one small mistake. She didn't double-check the recipient. In her exhausted haze, she had typed the first name that popped up in her contacts. Benjamin Harris. She didn't realize the mistake until after hitting send. She exhaled slowly, hoping no one would notice. She leaned her head back against the kitchen wall and whispered to herself, "It's fine. Nobody reads these things anyway." Her phone buzzed. She frowned, unlocking the screen. A new email appeared from Benjamin Harris. "Hi Angela. I think you sent this to me by mistake, but I can help." Angela froze. She blinked at the words, convinced her eyes were playing tricks on her. She tapped the sender's name and almost fell over. Benjamin Harris, the billionaire, one of the richest men in America, tech mogul, philanthropist, extremely private, and notoriously difficult to reach. His life was the subject of countless magazine articles, financial columns, and gossip blogs. And tonight, he was offering to help her with her grocery list. Her fingers trembled as she typed a quick reply. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. The email pinged back instantly. "No worries. Mistakes happen. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Angela's heart skipped a beat. She read it again. "He's coming? Here? To my apartment?" Moments later, a soft but firm knock sounded at her door. She jumped, startled, glancing at the clock. 9:55 p.m. Not that late, but it felt surreal. When she opened the door, she couldn't believe her eyes. A man stood there, tall and composed, wearing a casual cashmere sweater under a tailored coat. Dark hair slightly tousled, eyes sharp but kind. His presence was commanding without being arrogant, reassuring without being ordinary. He held several bags neatly stacked. Delivery?" Angela stammered, her cheeks flushing. "Hi, Angela," he said, his deep voice calm, almost gentle. "I thought you might need these." She could hardly believe it. He was real, and he had her groceries. I can't accept this," she managed, stepping aside to let him in. "Of course you can," he replied with a small, disarming smile. "And I brought something extra." He opened one of the bags and revealed a small tin of cookies. Warm, homemade, and perfectly wrapped. Angela inhaled the rich chocolate scent, her exhaustion momentarily replaced with disbelief. "You baked these?" she whispered. He nodded. "Yes, consider it a holiday accident gift." Angela stared at him. This was Benjamin Harris, the billionaire, the man she had read about in glossy magazines, whose life seemed untouchable, untouchably perfect. And yet here he was, standing in her modest apartment, offering cookies because of a misdirected email. "I don't even know what to say," she admitted. "You can say thank you," he replied. And she did, breathlessly. They stood awkwardly for a few moments, the air thick with unspoken tension. Angela's mind raced. Why is he here? How does he even know my apartment? What does he want from me? Sit down, he said suddenly, gesturing to the small sofa. I promise I'm not going to judge your grocery list or your apartment. I've seen worse. She laughed nervously, settling onto the couch. He did the same across from her, leaning back casually yet gracefully. You had a long day, he said softly, his eyes studying her with an attention that felt personal, intimate. Angela bit her lip. You could say that again. 12 hours on my feet. A dozen patients who needed everything yesterday. And now this. He smiled faintly. And now me. Lucky for you. She swallowed. How is this real? Why are you doing this? She asked quietly, afraid her voice might betray her vulnerability. Sometimes mistakes lead to good things, he said simply. Then he leaned forward, locking eyes with her. And sometimes, I think people who are exhausted, who keep giving to others, deserve a little unexpected kindness. Angela's throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, not because she didn't have words, but because she didn't have the words that would convey everything she was feeling. Shock, gratitude, disbelief, and, unexpectedly, a flutter she couldn't name. They sat in silence, the only sound the faint hum of the apartment heater. Outside, snow dusted the streets, muffling the city's usual chaos. Inside, a bizarre, quiet magic settled between them. He handed her one of the cookies. For courage, he said simply. Angela took it, hesitated, and then smiled. The first genuine smile she had given herself all week. Angela's phone buzzed. Another email. She hesitated, then opened it. And her heart skipped a beat. I have more ideas. If you want, I can bring dinner too. Call me. She looked up at Benjamin Harris, who was watching her with that calm, knowing smile. Should she accept? What could possibly happen if she did? If a billionaire showed up at your door because of an accidental email, would you let him in? Comment Bilo? The evening outside had grown colder, and snowflakes clung to Angela's eyelashes as she fumbled with the small apartment door, trying not to let her panic show. Benjamin Harris, still calm, followed closely behind, carrying the remaining grocery bags. Somehow, the weight of them didn't seem to bother him, as though he was used to carrying heavier burdens. I can help, he said, placing the bags on the counter. His hands were steady, warm, and capable, and Angela couldn't stop herself from noticing just how natural he seemed in her small, chaotic kitchen. Thanks. I guess I'm still processing that a billionaire just delivered groceries to my apartment, she admitted, brushing snow off her coat. He smiled faintly. You're welcome. And you're welcome for the cookies, too. I made extra just in case you were stressed enough to eat the whole batch. Angela laughed, a bit nervously, and the sound surprised her. Light and unburdened. It was a sound she hadn't heard from herself in weeks. She looked at the bags again, realizing he had gone far beyond her original order. Fresh bread, gourmet cheeses, pasta, fresh vegetables, and a bottle of wine. I can't let you do this. It's too much, she murmured. You've been working 12-hour shifts while still taking care of your family and your patients. Consider this a small gesture. Angela felt a pang in her chest. This wasn't just food. This was someone noticing her exhaustion, her effort, her humanity. And it wasn't her friends or family. It was him, the billionaire. She took a deep breath. I should make dinner for you too. It's only fair. He raised a brow. Fair? You're giving me a chance to spend time with you. That's more than enough. Despite his words, Angela couldn't stop the warmth from spreading through her chest. He wasn't arrogant, and he didn't expect anything. He was just present. She turned toward the kitchen counter and started unpacking vegetables, still trying to process the surreal situation. Benjamin stepped closer, tilting his head to examine the produce. Carrots, he said with a small smile. Good choice. Nutrients, and they're versatile. You like roasted or steamed? Roasted, definitely, Angela replied, startled at herself for answering a question she had no reason to care about sharing. He nodded as if satisfied, and she felt a strange flutter in her stomach. He was paying attention, noticing details, remembering small things, the kind of attentiveness that people rarely gave her outside of a professional context. As she started chopping, Benjamin unpacked the wine and bread, offering small suggestions here and there. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, from light joking about cookie disasters to stories of holiday mishaps. Angela found herself laughing more than she had in months. A natural, easy laughter that wasn't forced or polite. "You laugh a lot for someone who works in a hospice," he remarked gently. Angela paused, a bit defensive. "I have to. Otherwise, I'd cry all the time." His gaze softened, and he nodded knowingly. "I get that. Life isn't fair. People shouldn't have to carry so much and still pretend everything's fine." Her hands trembled slightly as she sliced a bell pepper. It wasn't just his words, it was the way he understood without judging, without pitying. Dinner was soon underway. Angela set the table awkwardly, her tiny apartment illuminated by the warm glow of string lights she had hung for the holidays. Benjamin watched her with that same calm, attentive presence. "You really did all this?" he said softly, noticing the small touches. The napkins folded neatly, the wine glasses glinting in the light. It's not much," Angela said, shrugging, but her cheeks flushed. He shook his head. "It's perfect. Because you did it. You made an effort. You cared." Their meal began quietly, punctuated by laughter and shared smiles. Benjamin proved to be an unexpected conversationalist, sharing stories of his own childhood, his favorite holiday traditions, and even a few embarrassing business mishaps. Angela listened, fascinated. He was more human than she had imagined, less a figure of power and more a man with vulnerabilities, a past, and private dreams. After the first course, he leaned back slightly, smiling at her over the wine glasses. "I have to admit, this is surprisingly comforting. I didn't expect to enjoy an impromptu dinner in a stranger's apartment this much." Angela looked down, unsure what to say. Her heart was racing. There was something about him, not his wealth, not his reputation, but the way he made her feel seen, important, liked for who she was. As the evening continued, Angela caught herself noticing little things. The way he absent-mindedly brushed a strand of hair from his eyes, the subtle kindness in his gestures, the warmth in his tone when he laughed. Each detail chipped away at the disbelief she had carried since opening that first email. Finally, dessert arrived. Warm cookies from the batch he had baked earlier, still slightly soft in the center. Angela couldn't resist breaking one in half and offering it to him. "You always share your cookies?" he asked, smiling. "I try to," she admitted. He took a bite, eyes lighting up. "These are incredible. You could sell these." She laughed, brushing off the compliment. "I'm no baker. I just like chocolate." "You're humble." "I like that," he said quietly. The night stretched on. They shared more stories, and Angela felt the strange sensation of being completely at ease with someone new. There was no judgment, no expectation, no pressure, just connection. Yet, as comfortable as it was, a small voice in her head reminded her, "This is a billionaire. This is not real. You don't belong in this world." She pushed the thought away, focusing instead on the warmth in her chest, the lightness in her laughter, and the way his presence made the apartment feel less small and lonely. Just as Angela began to relax fully, her phone buzzed with a message from her best friend. "OMG, saw the news. Benjamin Harris spotted downtown." "You didn't?" Angela froze, glancing at Benjamin. His expression shifted slightly, unreadable. The warmth between them suddenly carried an unspoken tension. Would their chance meeting remain a private, magical night? Or was the world about to crash into the small bubble they had created? If you were Angela, would you keep spending time with him, knowing he's a billionaire? Comment Bilo? The next morning, sunlight filtered through Angela's blinds, spilling across the small kitchen where the remnants of last night's dinner still lingered. Warm cookie crumbs decorated the counter like tiny reminders of the night before, and the faint smell of chocolate and baked dough lingered in the air. Angela sat at the table, nursing a mug of coffee, her mind still replaying every detail. Benjamin had stayed longer than she expected, helping her clean up the kitchen, carrying the remaining groceries into the fridge, and chatting as if he belonged there. She still couldn't believe it. A billionaire, a man with influence, power, and a life filled with endless responsibilities, had spent hours in her modest apartment. Not for business, not for publicity, but for her. And yet, now that the morning had come, Angela felt that creeping anxiety return. The reality of their worlds, his luxurious, unreachable life versus hers filled with exhaustion and small victories, was impossible to ignore. She heard a knock at her door, and before she could answer, Benjamin was stepping in again, a cup of coffee in each hand. "Morning," he said softly, handing her a cup. "Thought you might need this." Angela's heart skipped, and she took it automatically. "Thanks again." He sat across from her, fingers drumming lightly on the table. "I wasn't sure if I should text you first, but I wanted to see you again before the day starts." Angela's cheeks warmed. "You didn't have to come." He smiled faintly, the warmth in his eyes making her chest ache. "I wanted to. Are you really okay with last night being just a coincidence?" She shrugged, trying to seem casual. I don't know. It was nice. Weirdly nice. But..." Her words trailed off, her mind spinning with all the reasons this was impossible. "But..." Benjamin prompted gently. "But you're a billionaire," she said finally, meeting his eyes. "And I'm me." His gaze softened, and he leaned slightly forward. "Does that matter to you?" Angela hesitated. Of course it did. The gap between their lives wasn't just about money, it was about everything. She worried about judgment, assumptions, and how quickly this magic could dissolve under reality. I don't know," she whispered. Benjamin didn't push. He just nodded, letting her struggle with the words she couldn't yet say. Over the next few days, their paths began to cross in ways that felt like fate, rather than coincidence. Benjamin found small ways to enter her life, leaving groceries, notes, or little treats that seemed designed just for her. Each gesture was carefully considered, thoughtful, and undeniably intimate. Angela tried to maintain distance, to remind herself this was temporary, just a moment of kindness from a stranger. But the feelings that blossomed were impossible to ignore. She found herself looking forward to the small messages from him, to the sight of his familiar coat on the sidewalk, to the way he made even ordinary moments feel extraordinary. One evening, Angela returned home from a long shift at the hospice. Her feet ached, her back screamed, and yet she found herself smiling at the sight of Benjamin leaning against her doorframe, holding a small bag with takeout food from her favorite diner. "You're not eating enough," he said quietly, handing her the bag. "I thought you could use something hot." Angela laughed softly, a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "You really have no boundaries, do you?" "Boundaries are overrated," he replied, smiling. "Especially when someone is working as hard as you." They ate together at her tiny kitchen table, their conversation meandering from work stress to favorite movies to dreams for the future. Angela found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone for years. There was something about Benjamin that encouraged honesty, that made her want to share her hopes, fears, and regrets. He listened, really listened, with an intensity that made her feel seen. After a long pause, she admitted, "I never expected someone like you to care about me, about the little things." Benjamin reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Because it matters," he said simply. "You matter." Her heart lurched. This wasn't a business arrangement. This wasn't a fleeting act of kindness. This was him, touching her life in a way no one else had. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened. Benjamin was no longer just the billionaire who delivered groceries. He was the man who laughed with her, who remembered the tiny details, who supported her silently when she struggled. And Angela found herself wondering more and more if she had been ready for this kind of connection all along. But the thought that loomed over her like a shadow was always there. He is a billionaire. I'm not. This isn't real. And Benjamin, despite his own heart growing heavier each day, couldn't erase the professional obligations and public expectations that followed him everywhere. He had his own fears, own hesitations, and yet he couldn't stop himself from wanting her. One snowy evening, as they walked together through a quiet city park, their hands brushing against each other, Benjamin stopped. He turned to face her, eyes searching hers. "Angela, I know this started unexpectedly. I know it might not make sense. But I need to be honest. I can't pretend that what I feel isn't real." Angela's breath caught. "Benjamin, He gently lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss to it. "I know, and I won't rush you, but I need you to know what we have. It's not just kindness. It's not just a mistake. It's real. At least it is for me." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this wasn't just a fairy tale. She wanted him. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed. A notification from her mother appeared on the screen. A photo with the caption, "Angela, just saw Benjamin Harris downtown. He's so handsome. Tell me you two are together." Angela's heart sank. She looked up at Benjamin, unsure what to say. His expression was unreadable, calm, but she could feel the tension that had settled between them like a storm cloud. Would their connection survive the outside world? Could their unexpected love withstand the scrutiny of fame, wealth, and reality? Angela's stomach churned as she realized her life was about to change. Not just emotionally, but publicly. The world was starting to notice Benjamin's presence in her life, and with it came a storm neither of them had anticipated. Would their secret connection survive? Or would it be swept away before it truly began? If you were Angela, would you take the risk of falling for someone like Benjamin? Comment Bilo? Snow continued to fall lightly over the city, dusting the streets and rooftops in a soft, almost magical blanket of white. Angela and Benjamin walked side by side through the park, their breaths visible in the chilly air. The twinkle of holiday lights reflected off icy patches, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that made the city look enchanted. But Angela hardly noticed. Her mind was consumed by him. Benjamin's presence felt different now. Not just protective or kind, but warm, comforting, and quietly intimate. Every small gesture he made seemed to linger in her mind. The way he offered her his coat when the wind blew sharply, the careful way he walked beside her to make sure she didn't slip on ice, the way his laughter, low and genuine, seemed to echo long after it ended. "So," Benjamin said, breaking the silence as they reached a small bridge overlooking the river. "How's your week been? Still surviving your nursing shifts?" Angela gave a small laugh, rubbing her hands together. "Surviving, yes. Thriving, not so much. It's exhausting. But the cookies, the groceries, the random billionaire visits, those help." Benjamin's lips curved in a smile. "Glad to know I can provide more than just sugar and snacks." She met his gaze, her own smile faltering slightly. "It's not just that. You make it feel like someone sees me, really sees me, and I haven't felt that in a long time." Benjamin stopped walking and turned to her fully. His expression softened, serious now, the usual ease replaced with a rare vulnerability. "Angela," he said, his voice low, "I don't want you to feel like any of this is temporary. I know we met by accident, that this all started because of a mistake. But what I feel for you, what we have, it's not a mistake. Not to me." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that his words weren't just comforting, that they weren't another fleeting moment destined to disappear. But she hesitated. "Benjamin, I don't know if this can work. You have your life, your responsibilities, your world. And I have mine. It's complicated. I'm tired. I'm scared of being let down." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle but grounding. "I get it," he said. "I've lived in that world too. And I promise, I'm not going anywhere unless you want me to. But I need you to know that I'm serious about this. About us." Angela swallowed hard. The weight of his words settled over her, mingling with the warmth in her chest. She had never felt this way before. Not so safe, not so exposed, not so alive. The following days blurred together in a haze of shared meals, long walks, and quiet evenings together. Benjamin had become a part of her routine, seamlessly weaving himself into the small, chaotic life she led. He would leave notes in her apartment with little jokes or reminders to rest, deliver groceries when her fridge was empty, or show up unexpectedly with warm blankets and cocoa on particularly rough days. Angela, in turn, found herself letting her guard down. She told him stories about her childhood, about her parents, her dreams before reality had taken over. She spoke about her fears and the loneliness that often clung to her at night. And Benjamin listened, truly listened, without judgment, without rushing, without expectation. One night, they cooked dinner together in her tiny kitchen. Angela chopped vegetables while Benjamin stirred pasta, their movements synchronized in a way that felt effortless. "I can't believe I'm saying this," she said, laughing nervously, "but I think I'm starting to enjoy this. Cooking. With you." Benjamin smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I'm glad, because I've never met anyone who appreciates my burnt garlic skills as much as you do." Angela raised an eyebrow. "Burnt garlic skills? That sounds concerning." "Exquisite," he replied solemnly, earning a giggle from her that she didn't realize she'd been holding back for weeks. As they ate, the conversation turned deeper, more personal. Benjamin spoke of his late parents, the loss that had shaped him, the pressure of the business world, and the loneliness that accompanied wealth. Angela shared her own stories, the heartbreaks, the late nights, the moments when she had doubted herself. By the time dessert arrived, chocolate lava cake with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, neither of them remembered the first awkward introductions. It was just them, two people connecting in ways that went beyond convenience or mistake. That night, as Benjamin prepared to leave, Angela walked him to the door. The snow had thickened, and the city outside seemed quieter, softer, as if holding its breath. "Benjamin, thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For this." She gestured vaguely, indicating everything. The care, the attention, the way he had entered her life so seamlessly. He looked at her, his expression unreadable, until finally he spoke. "Angela, I don't need to thank me. You let me in. You trusted me. That's what matters." She nodded, her chest tight. I don't know how to do this. How to feel this without being scared." He stepped closer, his hand brushing against hers. "It's okay to be scared," he said, "but it's also okay to let yourself feel something real, something good. You deserve it." Her heart lurched, and she found herself unable to speak. Benjamin leaned down slightly, his forehead resting against hers. "Sleep well, Angela. Dream of cookies if you like. But don't be afraid of what we have. Not tonight." And with that, he was gone, leaving her standing in the quiet apartment, her mind racing, her heart pounding. For the first time in months, she felt hope, not just for herself but for something more, something she had thought impossible but now felt within reach. As Angela collapsed into bed, the sound of the snow outside masking the city's chaos, her phone buzzed. A message from Benjamin appeared on the screen. "Tomorrow, I'll show you something that might change everything, if you're willing to see it." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the text, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. Would you take a chance on love that started by accident? Comment Bilo? The next morning, Chicago sparkled under a layer of frost, sunlight reflecting off the skyscrapers and icy streets. Angela pulled her cardigan tighter around herself as she stepped out for her morning walk, the crisp air filling her lungs. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, but she ignored it, knowing that Benjamin's texts, full of charm and subtle mischief, had a way of making her heart race even before she read them. Finally, she gave in. "Meet me at the Riverside Pier at noon. I have something to show you. Don't be late. B." Her stomach fluttered nervously. She had no idea what he planned, but curiosity won over apprehension. When she arrived at the pier, the river shimmered under the pale winter sun, ice chunks floating slowly downstream. And there he was, Benjamin, casually leaning against the railing, looking effortless in a dark coat and scarf, yet somehow impossibly elegant. The sight of him made her pulse quicken. "Hey," he said warmly, stepping forward. "Glad you came." "Of course," she replied, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "What is this?" Benjamin gestured toward a small boat moored at the pier. "Trust me," he said. "I promise you'll enjoy it." Angela raised an eyebrow but followed him anyway. The boat was modest but well-kept, its interior filled with cozy blankets and hot chocolate waiting in insulated mugs. A simple holiday playlist hummed softly from a small speaker. "You brought hot chocolate," she said, her lips curving into a smile. "I'm impressed." "I pay attention to details," he replied, offering her a mug. "Little things matter." As they settled inside, the boat slowly pushed off the pier. The river reflected the sunlight and the city skyline, creating a scene almost magical in its simplicity. Angela sipped her chocolate, feeling warmth spread through her body, not just from the drink, but from being near him. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked, her curiosity genuine. Benjamin leaned back, watching the river calmly. "Because I wanted to share something real with you, away from emails, groceries, and the chaos of your life." Angela studied him, noting the vulnerability behind his usual composure. "You seem different today, not just playful or charming. Serious." He turned to her, his gaze steady. "I want you to know something, Angela. What started as a mistake, as a grocery email, changed me. It made me realize what I've been missing, what I've been avoiding." Her breath caught. She didn't know whether to be scared, hopeful, or completely flustered. "Benjamin," she whispered. He held up a hand gently. "I'm not rushing you. I just want you to know that what I feel is real. And I hope you can feel it too." Angela's heart thudded loudly in her chest. The moment hung between them, delicate, fragile, yet undeniable. She looked down at her hands, struggling to process the truth behind his words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to reach out and trust this man who had entered her life in such an improbable way. "Angela?" Benjamin's voice softened, breaking through her thoughts. "Look at me." She raised her eyes. His expression was sincere, unguarded in a way she hadn't expected. He wasn't just the billionaire she'd read about in magazines or seen at charity events. He was a man who cared, who noticed, who valued her in a way that no money or power could dictate. For a long moment, she simply breathed, letting herself absorb his words, his presence, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this was more than a simple accident. Then Benjamin smiled, just a little, his eyes glinting with warmth and mischief. "So, hot chocolate first, confession second?" Angela laughed softly, the sound blending with the soft winter wind and the river's gentle flow. "Confession second," she agreed. They spent the next hour talking, really talking, about hopes, fears, dreams they had long buried, and moments that shaped who they were. Benjamin shared stories about his childhood, his family's legacy, the pressures of wealth, and the loneliness that came with it. Angela shared the exhaustion and heartache of her work as a hospice nurse. The quiet victories, the overwhelming losses, the nights spent questioning if she made any difference at all. Somewhere between the first laugh and the last sip of chocolate, their walls began to crumble. Not completely, but just enough to let trust seep through. As the boat drifted near a small, secluded pier, Benjamin reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small notebook. He handed it to her. "What's this?" Angela asked. "It's something I've been keeping since our first accidental exchange," he said. "Thought you might like to see it." Angela opened it carefully. Inside were notes, sketches, and little observations he had made about her. From the way she smiled when no one was watching, to the way she cradled a cup of coffee like it was a treasure, to her small acts of kindness she didn't even realize were noticed. She looked up at him, stunned. "You wrote all this about me?" Benjamin nodded. "I wanted to remember, to show you that you matter, that the little things, the real things, are what count." Her throat tightened. She blinked back tears she hadn't expected. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied softly. "Just know that I see you, really see you, For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Angela felt seen. Not for what she did or how she appeared or what she earned. Not for her mistakes or her anxieties, but for who she truly was. And somehow that was more overwhelming than she could have imagined. As the boat returned to the pier, Angela's phone buzzed. She hesitated, then looked down. It was a message from her best friend. Angela, Benjamin, are you serious? Be careful. Don't get hurt. She swallowed, looking up at Benjamin. His hand brushed hers instinctively, a silent anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Could she risk her heart on someone who started as a stranger? Someone she was supposed to only know for cookies and small kindnesses? Would you trust a billionaire who started as a stranger?
Comment Bilo?
The city lights of Chicago glimmered against the night sky as Angela walked home. The notebook Benjamin had given her tucked carefully under her arm. Her heart still pounded from the afternoon on the boat, from the way he had looked at her, and the way he had seen her. Each step toward her apartment felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She tried to remind herself he was a billionaire, a man with wealth, influence, and a life so far removed from hers that the distance alone should have kept her grounded. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he made her feel noticed, valued, even beautiful. When she opened her apartment door, the familiar smell of vanilla candles filled the air. She sank onto her couch and opened the notebook again. His notes were meticulous, thoughtful, proof that he had been paying attention all along, even when she thought she was invisible. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Benjamin. Hope you got home safely. I can't stop thinking about today. Angela exhaled, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should she reply? Could she even reply without sounding too eager? She typed, erased, and finally typed again. I got home safe. Thank you for today. It was unexpected, but wonderful. The reply came almost instantly. Good. I'm glad. Tomorrow, same time, maybe a walk through Millennium Park. Her stomach twisted nervously. She wanted to say yes, wanted to spend every free moment with him, but a small voice whispered caution. He's a billionaire. You're a nurse. Don't get ahead of yourself. The next morning, Angela braved the cold again, dressed in layers and pulling her scarf tightly around her neck. Millennium Park was quiet in the early morning, snow crunching softly under her boots. Benjamin was already there when she arrived, leaning casually against a lamppost, his coat dusted with a light layer of snow. Good morning, he said with that calm, confident smile that made her chest flutter. Good morning, she replied, smiling despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. They walked side by side, talking about mundane things at first. The weather, the city, even the ridiculous amount of holiday decorations that seemed to pop up everywhere overnight. But gradually, the conversation shifted, and Angela found herself telling him things she hadn't said to anyone in years. Stories about her work at the hospice, moments that had broken her heart, and times that had reminded her why she loved being a nurse despite the exhaustion. Benjamin listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. He didn't interrupt or offer platitudes. He simply listened, reacting with quiet empathy, with genuine understanding. For the first time, Angela felt completely safe in sharing her vulnerability with someone. You know, he said finally, his voice soft, I've never met anyone who carries so much in their heart and still keeps moving forward. Most people would crumble under half of what you face every day. Angela's throat tightened. It's not always easy. I can see that, he replied gently. But it also makes you stronger. And it makes you remarkable. Her heart skipped. Remarkable. She had never thought of herself that way, not truly. Days passed, and their meetings became a routine, a kind of escape from the world. They discovered shared passions. Books, a love for hot chocolate, late-night walks in the snow. Benjamin was careful not to overwhelm her with his wealth, instead choosing moments that felt ordinary. Riding the L, grabbing a slice of pizza from a corner shop, or standing quietly by the lake, watching ducks waddle across the frozen water. But with each shared moment, a shadow of doubt crept in. One evening, as they watched the sunset from a small rooftop garden, Angela finally voiced her fear. Benjamin, what if what we're doing isn't real?" she asked softly. He turned to her, his expression serious. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you could walk away tomorrow. This could be just a game for you, something temporary. You're a billionaire. You can have anyone do anything. And I'm just me." Benjamin took her hands in his, the touch warm and grounding. "Angela, I promise you this isn't a game. I don't care about wealth or appearances. What I care about is you, who you are. Not what you can give me or what I have to offer you." Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of relief and fear. "I want to believe you. I really do. And you will?" he said softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I'll make sure of it." A week later, Angela's apartment doorbell rang unexpectedly. She opened it to find Benjamin standing there, holding a small, carefully wrapped package. "For you," he said simply. "Just a little something. No reason, except that I was thinking of you." She took the package and unwrapped it to find a beautiful journal, leather-bound and embossed with her initials. Inside, on the first page, Benjamin had written, "For all your stories, both told and untold. For you, Angela." She looked up at him, speechless. "Benjamin, this is beautiful." He smiled softly. "Not as beautiful as the person who inspired it." Angela's heart pounded. She wanted to tell him everything, to confess how deeply she had fallen, but she hesitated. The reality of their differences loomed large, the vast divide between their worlds. Could she ever belong in his life? Could he truly belong in hers? Benjamin seemed to read her hesitation. "Angela, whatever you're thinking, I want you to know something. I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you tell me to." Her chest tightened, tears threatening again. I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," he whispered. "Just trust me. Trust us." For a long moment, they simply stood together, watching the city lights shimmer against the winter sky. For once, the noise of the world seemed to fade, leaving only them and the quiet, growing bond between them. Angela received a call from her hospice manager the next day. A family emergency meant she needed to travel immediately, far away from the city, from Benjamin, from the life she was beginning to imagine with him. Would she leave before she could truly explore this love? Or would she take the risk of blending her world with his? Should Angela follow her duty or follow her heart? Comment Bilo? Angela's flight hummed softly as it lifted above the snow-blanketed Midwest. She stared out the window, the clouds glowing in streaks of gold and pink from the early sunrise. Her hands rested on her notebook, the one Benjamin had given her, and she traced the embossed letters absent-mindedly. Her mind, however, wasn't on the leather cover. It was on him. Alexander, Benjamin. She had called him Benjamin now in her head, as if the simple act of using his name made him more real, more hers. She could still feel his hands, his warmth, the way his eyes seemed to read the parts of her she hadn't even admitted existed. But reality pressed down. She was traveling to care for a family emergency, a terminal patient her mother had cared for and loved dearly. Angela had committed herself to being there, and being there meant leaving Benjamin, even if only temporarily. Her phone buzzed with a new message. She opened it cautiously. "Safe travels, Angela. Remember, this is temporary. I'll be here when you get back. Benjamin." Her chest tightened. Temporary. She knew it. She understood it. But she also felt the first real sting of longing, the ache of missing someone you barely knew but somehow already felt attached to. Benjamin, meanwhile, returned to his penthouse, a quiet, luxurious space that felt emptier now than it ever had. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sank into the armchair by the window, staring out at the city below. Normally, he was a man who thrived on control, on order, on schedules and meetings and results. But with Angela, nothing felt ordered. Nothing could be controlled. He hadn't just fallen for her. He had tumbled, headfirst, completely unprepared. The warmth, the humor, the quiet strength that radiated from her. It wasn't just attraction. It was a pull that made him rethink everything about what he wanted in life. And now she was gone. His assistant called at noon. "Mr. Harris, your schedule." "Cancel everything," Benjamin interrupted sharply. I'm not available. He hung up, sipping his coffee, staring at the snow swirling against the glass. Every text she sent, every brief check-in only made him want to see her more. He knew the rules of their worlds, the boundaries they should respect, but he also knew one thing clearly. He wouldn't let distance weaken what had started between them. Angela's days away were long and tiring. The family emergency demanded her full attention, and she was grateful for the distraction. Yet every quiet moment made her heart ache. She kept her phone close, hoping for a message from Benjamin, and he did not disappoint. Each morning, a text would arrive. A short message of support, a funny anecdote about something in the city, a reminder that he was thinking of her. Sometimes he would send pictures. A small snowman he built outside his penthouse. A coffee he claimed she would like. A tiny note. Wish you were here to try this. Angela smiled despite herself. She would never admit it aloud, but those messages were lifelines. They reminded her that beyond the city, beyond her responsibilities, beyond the chaos of life, there was someone waiting, thinking of her, wanting her. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Angela allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Sitting by a small window in the quiet of her temporary apartment, she opened the notebook Benjamin had given her and reread his notes. Each page felt alive, almost vibrating with the presence of him. She traced his handwriting and felt the flush of connection across miles. And then she realized she was falling. Slowly, quietly, inexorably, she was falling for him. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. She typed a message but hesitated. I miss you. She erased it. Can't wait to see you again. Erased again. Finally, she sent a simple message. Thinking of you. Seconds later, her phone buzzed. Benjamin's reply was immediate. I'm thinking of you too, Angela. Counting the days until you're back. Her heart raced. Back in Chicago, Benjamin's daily routine was a haze. Meetings blurred into dinners into early mornings, but nothing mattered. Not the stock reports, not the board meetings, not even the carefully curated social events. All that mattered was Angela. Her voice, her laughter, her presence that lingered in every corner of his mind. He sent her flowers, small gifts, and little notes. Always careful, always thoughtful, never overwhelming. But each gesture had an unspoken message. I'm here. I'm not leaving. I care more than you realize. And yet, beneath the gestures, there was a shadow of fear. What if her time away changed things? What if, without him there, she realized the gap between their worlds was too vast? Could she accept the love he was offering, or would it vanish as quickly as it had started? Angela, meanwhile, faced her own battles. Amid the patient care, she grappled with the growing intensity of her feelings for Benjamin. She worried, sometimes bitterly, that she was being foolish, that her heart was running ahead of reality. How could a billionaire truly want her? A nurse with a simple life, a past full of hardships, a present full of responsibilities. But then she remembered the way he looked at her. Not with pity, not with fascination, not with curiosity, but with warmth, respect, and something deeper. Something that made her believe, if only for a moment, that love could transcend everything. She realized she was no longer just thinking of him as a convenient escape from loneliness. She was thinking of him as someone she could share her life with, someone who could understand her without judgment, someone who made her feel whole in ways she hadn't known she needed. The final night before her return to Chicago arrived, and Angela felt a mix of anticipation and dread. She packed her bags carefully, trying to keep her emotions in check. Would he be there at the airport? Would he even remember to pick her up? Or had their connection been a fragile thing, maintained only by distance and digital messages? Her phone buzzed one last time before she left. Tomorrow. I'll be waiting. Safe travels, Angela. Her chest tightened, a flutter of hope and fear mingling. Tomorrow would decide everything. Would the distance prove insurmountable, or would it be the catalyst that cemented their bond? Angela stepped onto the plane, her heart pounding. Across miles, Benjamin waited, unaware of how much this reunion could change everything. But one thing was certain. Their story was far from over. Would their love survive the reality of meeting again, face to face, beyond texts and gestures? Or would the fear of their differences tear them apart? Do you think love can survive distance and differences?
Comment Bilo?
The taxi pulled up to Benjamin Harris's penthouse, its sleek glass facade gleaming against the evening skyline. Angela's hands trembled slightly as she stepped out, clutching her small suitcase and the notebook Benjamin had given her. Every step toward the entrance felt like stepping into a dream and a test. Inside, the doorman smiled politely and gestured toward the elevator. "Penthouse, sir?" Angela nodded, taking a deep breath. Her heart hammered in her chest. What would he say? What would he do? Would he be waiting with the warmth she had imagined for weeks? The elevator doors slid open. She walked into the penthouse and froze. Benjamin stood near the balcony, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the city lights. He hadn't noticed her yet. Her chest tightened. He looked magnificent, not just in the expensive suit tailored to his frame, but in the way he held himself, quiet, confident, powerful, but softened by the vulnerable openness she had glimpsed before. Benjamin turned slowly, his gaze locking on hers. "Angela," he breathed. She felt herself melt slightly. The tension in her chest, the weeks of uncertainty, the longing, they all collapsed into that one moment. "Benjamin," she said softly. He crossed the room in a few long strides and held out his hand. "Welcome back." She stepped forward, placing her hand in his. It was warm, steady, grounding. He didn't pull away. For a heartbeat, the world disappeared. Only the two of them existed. The city skyline, the soft hum of the penthouse, the distant holiday music below. It was all irrelevant. Benjamin finally broke the silence. "I've been counting down the days until you returned." Angela's throat tightened. "And now that I'm here?" He smiled softly. "Now that you're here, I don't want to waste another moment. I want us to be honest. No distance. No pretense." She swallowed. "Benjamin, I've missed you. More than I thought I could." "And I've missed you," he admitted, voice low and sincere. "Every single day. I realized something while you were away. I can't imagine my life without you." Her chest ached. This wasn't the simple, transactional connection of weeks ago. This was something real. Something terrifyingly, wonderfully real. They moved closer. Not rushed, not awkward, just natural. The warmth of their hands, the subtle brush of fingers, the quiet hum of mutual understanding. It all spoke louder than words. Over the next few days, Angela and Benjamin navigated the delicate balance between their worlds. The penthouse was luxurious, but it wasn't intimidating with her by his side. He showed her the spaces that mattered to him, the study where he drafted business strategies, the kitchen where he attempted baking with disastrous but endearing results, and the balcony overlooking the city that he claimed was his favorite thinking spot. Angela laughed more than she had in weeks. The comfort she felt in his presence was unlike anything she had expected from a billionaire. He wasn't distant or patronizing. He was present, attentive, gentle, and occasionally mischievous. But reality was never far. Their relationship, so carefully nurtured over texts, calls, and fleeting moments, was now tangible. Angela worried about how their worlds could coexist. She was a nurse, grounded in empathy, humility, and care. He was a CEO navigating wealth, expectations, and public scrutiny. Could love built on honesty and vulnerability survive such differences? One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Benjamin asked, "Angela, have you thought about the future? About us?" She froze. "The future?" "Yes," he said softly, chopping vegetables with calm precision. "I'm serious about us. I know it started as unusual circumstances, but what we have, what we feel, it's real, and I don't want to ignore it." Angela's hands trembled. She had spent weeks convincing herself that this connection was temporary, that distance or reality would undo it. But here he was, offering commitment, sincerity, and love without hesitation. I want this too," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared. I don't know how to fit into your world." Benjamin paused and looked at her with a tenderness that melted the last of her doubts. Angela, you don't have to fit. I'll meet you where you are. We'll create a world together. One step at a time. But I promise, I won't let you go. Her chest swelled with emotion. This wasn't just romance. It was partnership, respect, and mutual trust. Later that night, as they sat on the balcony wrapped in blankets, watching the city lights twinkle below, Benjamin reached for her hand. Do you realize how far we've come? Angela smiled softly. From a mistaken email to this? Benjamin chuckled. From groceries to love. Life is strange, isn't it? Life is amazing, she whispered. And sometimes, he added, the best things start in the most unexpected ways. The city hummed around them. The wind carried the scent of snow and possibility. And for the first time in weeks, Angela felt completely, undeniably at home, here with him. But as they leaned closer, wrapped in warmth and the glow of city lights, a notification appeared on Benjamin's phone. An email from a high-profile investor. Something urgent, requiring his immediate attention. The question now loomed. Could they navigate love alongside the pressures of wealth, public scrutiny, and the life-altering choices ahead? Would their bond survive the realities of Benjamin's world? Or would the demands of his empire test the strength of their unexpected love? Do you think Angela and Benjamin can make love work despite their different worlds? Comment Bilo? The sun rose over Chicago, casting a warm golden glow through the penthouse windows. Angela sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, sipping coffee. Beside her, Benjamin stirred quietly, watching the city wake up. For a moment the world felt paused, silent, perfect, and theirs. Yet reality was never far away. The email from the investor from the night before still lingered in Benjamin's inbox. A reminder of the life outside this bubble of warmth and connection. Angela knew the demands of his world, but she also knew that love wasn't about avoiding challenges. It was about facing them together. Morning, Benjamin said softly, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Morning, she replied, smiling. Her heart still fluttered in his presence. A gentle rhythm that reminded her this wasn't a dream. He reached over, brushing a stray hair from her face. Did you sleep well? I did, she admitted. Better than I have in months. Benjamin's smile was quiet, tender. Good, because I don't plan on letting you go. Angela laughed softly, leaning against him. Not even if I make mistakes? Or send grocery lists to random billionaires? He chuckled, kissing her temple. Especially then. They spent the morning together, cooking breakfast, laughing over burnt toast, and talking about small, ordinary things. Things that felt extraordinary because they were shared. For Angela, it was a revelation. Love could be calm, comforting, and grounding, not just fireworks and dramatic confessions. By afternoon, Benjamin received multiple calls, each more urgent than the last. Angela watched him shift into professional mode. Focused, efficient, commanding. But she also noticed the quick glances he sent her. Silent promises that she was still his priority. Will you be okay while I take this? He asked, gesturing toward his phone. Angela nodded. I'll be fine. And I trust you. He smiled, relief flickering in his eyes. Thank you, Angela. That means more than you know. Benjamin stepped into his office, leaving Angela to explore the penthouse. She wandered through the luxurious space, absorbing the elegance without feeling out of place. For once, she realized she belonged not because of wealth or status, but because she had been chosen, genuinely, entirely, for who she was. Evening approached, and Benjamin returned. The tension of the day softened when he saw Angela waiting with a simple dinner laid out on the balcony. Her touch, her presence, had transformed his world in subtle ways. They ate together, sharing stories and laughter. Then Benjamin leaned back, gazing at her seriously. Angela, I've been thinking about us, about how this all began. She swallowed. From a mistaken email to here. Yes, he said, smiling faintly. It started as a small accident, something that should have been inconsequential, but it led to everything. Angela's heart fluttered. Everything. Yes, you've changed my life, he admitted. Not because of what you did or how perfect this started, but because of you, your kindness, your strength, your honesty. I don't want to imagine a life without you. Tears pricked Angela's eyes. Benjamin, I feel the same. I didn't expect any of this, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. He took her hands in his, warmth radiating from him. Then let's not waste another moment. I want us to face everything together. No pretending. No running. Just us. Angela nodded, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace. She realized then that love wasn't about perfection or circumstance. It was about choice. And they had chosen each other every day. Over the next few months, their relationship grew deeper. The media buzzed, curious about the mysterious billionaire and the nurse who captured his heart. But Angela and Benjamin focused on their world, creating traditions, sharing quiet moments, and supporting each other's dreams. One snowy December evening, Benjamin led Angela to the balcony. The city twinkled below, a blanket of lights reflecting their journey. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small box. Angela, he said softly, from the moment I met you, my life changed. Not because of an email, not because of chance, but because of you. Will you continue this journey with me? Forever. Tears welled in Angela's eyes as she whispered, Yes, Benjamin, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced. The cityscape beneath them, a silent witness to a love that had grown from the most unexpected beginnings. The accidental email that started it all now felt like destiny. Angela and Benjamin stood on the balcony, hearts intertwined, realizing that love could arrive in the most improbable ways, and that sometimes mistakes lead to the most beautiful outcomes. Would they face challenges in the world outside their penthouse? Of course. But together, they knew they could navigate anything life threw their way. Could a simple mistake really lead to true love? Comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to Philia HEART for more unexpected billionaire romance stories. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.